Okay, so welcome to our secondary admissions session this morning. This is, as I say, being recorded, and I'm also going to be sharing my screen so that you can see what it is that we're focusing on. But I have already shared these slides, so if you have another means of following the slides along, you should have those in your inbox through parent mail. I'm just waiting for the screen to come up. Okay, I don't know if somebody could unmute and let me know if you can see my screen at the moment.
Yes, we can see it.
Brilliant. Okay, let's go back to it. Thank you very much. Okay, so our session this morning is just to cast a bit of light on the process of applying for the 11 plus test for your child, just to think about whether it's the appropriate thing for your child and how to prepare them in the best possible way. And you probably haven't seen the booklet like this as yet. It is available on the website, but it's still last year's. Right, this is going to be tricky because I have to come off when it beeps to let people into the meeting and go back. Then I'm hoping everybody, oh, hang on, there's another one. Okay, and then go back to presenting. So this is the booklet you may have seen, as I say, on the website, but it's still last year's booklet. The new booklet isn't due for a while anyway, and it may be that they're slightly delayed this year, but as soon as it's available, we always get it on paper and we send it out to you directly anyway. So every child in the year group will receive this as soon as it's available on paper, as well as us sending you the link to it electronically. It really is a very important book because it will answer all of your questions. And a lot of the information this morning comes directly from that book. So within the last few years, the booking process for the 11 plus has moved to being over, if you like, by July. They tend to open it around mid-May now. And we always remind parents when that window for registration for the test opens, because we cannot register your child for you. And actually, as soon as, sorry, I'll just go back and let somebody in. There we go. As soon as we let people know, as soon as it's open, some of those test centres really do fill up very, very quickly. So if you have a particular school where you'd like your child to take the test, then it really is in your interest to put a reminder for that opening date. We don't know it yet, but when we do, putting it into your calendar and making it a priority to do it that day if you can. And then you get to choose exactly where they sit the test. And it bears it really doesn't matter where they sit the test as to where they might end up going. You can sit the test at any of the CSSE schools and apply to any. Excuse me again, I'm just going to let somebody else join the meeting. Okay, so what normally happens then is the test is taken around the 3rd Saturday of September. And of course, this year that was the plan. In reality, this year it was later. It was actually the beginning of November. We don't anticipate, as much as any of us can, we don't anticipate that will be the case next year. It will probably be the case, therefore, that the test will be around the 3rd Saturday of September as usual. The results will be sent out in the middle of October as usual, and that there will still be, as always, an end of October deadline, which is for the local authority to receive your preferences for your child's secondary school. That deadline has stayed the same. We don't see any reason why that will change. Okay. We'll hold another meeting in between now and then to talk to you more about the process for completing that local authority form. Today is more about the 11 plus. So, as I say, the booklet there will tell you everything you need to know. And actually, since it's 7 years now since they made the change to have the test earlier in September, so that by the time you get the results, you know whether your child is going to be able to qualify for a place at grammar school before you fill in the form for the local authority. So it really has enabled parents to be able to make an informed choice. This year we know was slightly different because the test was late, the application still had to be put in, but parents were given an additional choice. As I say, we don't anticipate that that change will be still in place next year. We should be back to normal. So if your child registers for and then takes the test, you'll get a results letter about mid-October. It's only a couple of weeks before you have to make those preferences on the 31st of October. So you have to really, have prepared for both outcomes, if you like, because you only have a couple of weeks to change your preferences. So the results letter will give you an indication of whether it's likely or not that your child will get in. Excuse me again. Okay, so if it's only, if there is a particular amount of interest for a particular school, obviously in Southend there are places that are ring fenced for our children at 303. We'll come into this in a little bit more detail later on, but 303 is that kind of threshold, if you like, for meeting the requirements on the day. I don't really like to use the word pass or fail. It is about how your child does on the day, and 303 is that kind of lowest score. If lots of people want to get into a particular school and they put it as their preference, and more children than there are places get 303, that could increase just because of the popularity of that particular school. As we say, 5 preferences are to be made by the end of October, and the national offer day is always the beginning of March of the following year. So there was a change. This is about, again, 5-6 years ago now, that the papers were written to match more of what children do in mainstream school. So the papers, the way they're written, are very much reflecting the way that children in our school do tests. So the questions are written in the same way. And the discrete verbal reasoning paper was taken out of it altogether because that wasn't something that was being done in mainstream schooling, therefore was seen to disadvantage children at mainstream. There are, on the CSSE website, plenty of sample materials available. So if you literally are able to look up www.csse.org.uk, that information is all there, along with that booklet, as I say, that you can take a look at. Obviously, if you use sample materials or any of the materials that are available, there are also test papers that you can buy for yourself for use at home with your children. But just be aware that if we then do it as a mock test in school, and we will be doing some more information a bit later, that obviously is going to affect the scores they get in those mocks. So if they come home and they've got 100%, I would be, checking to make sure it's not one that they've done at home. Our advice regarding how to prepare all of the information we share this morning has come from the grammar schools themselves. So we're not just making it up. The English paper comprises a comprehension, a grammar, and vocabulary questions built within that, 2 pieces of creative writing, and some applied reasoning. The paper still, as far as we know, there's no change. It lasts an hour, and it's got some additional reading time prior to that, and it's worth 60 marks in total. It has a single comprehension passage, and it's picked to be particularly unfamiliar. They're not going to pick a book that they ever think a child will have picked up and come across. They pick something that's slightly out of age range. It will be appropriate for the children, but they really want to find something with challenging vocabulary that the children just won't ever have met before, so that the children are tested in what they think that word might mean in the context of that sentence. Building on that, there are questions on grammar, punctuation, as well as comprehension. And actually, those are easy questions for the children at Greenways, because our children are very good at knowing what the grammar is, how to use it. I'm not saying they always remember to use it, but they are very good at knowing how to put the correct grammar and punctuation into sentences and sections of text. And that is something which you can spend time with your child really honing as a skill, taking a section out of a book, taking all the full stops, capital letters, speech marks, commas, everything out of it, and then asking your child to put them back in, because that is, I say, easy marks for your child to achieve. But there are always going to be some quite difficult elements to the test, because they need to differentiate between the most able children. So the test is going to be, as I say, based on a piece of writing that is unfamiliar to the children. Westcliff High School for Boys have said 19th century texts are particularly good preparation. Good preparation for actually doing the test doesn't mean you have to sit, or your child has to sit reading through whole works. You know, if your child happens to pick up, you know, texts of this age and enjoy them, then that's absolutely great. But I really think you'll be in the minority. The majority of children find it really hard to be faced by quite demanding texts. If your child is reading Harry Potter and they're enjoying it, that's perfect. What we mustn't do is try and get them to read something for the sake of it. If they're not enjoying it, you've got to find something they enjoy. And if it's not that challenging, then just use some challenging pieces of text to extend them for specific work. So look at excerpts from challenging text, as I say, to practice that grammar and punctuation, and to talk about what the meanings of words might be within that text. When it comes to the writing test, again, this is something that's quite new. So about 4 or 5 years ago, they introduced writing because they know it's something that all of the children in mainstream schools are learning to do well. They are not expecting a huge, lengthy piece of writing. Quality is most important. You should be aiming for your child to write at least 6 sentences. And there's a list on the right-hand side there of the sort of things that are going to get better marks. So an example, explain what is your favourite time in the year, or describe what gift or present you would most like to be given. So it will be something random that the children won't have been able to necessarily prepare content for, but you can prepare them with the sort of things, the sort of features that they should be including in their writing. That being clear and original, focusing on the task, not going off on a tangent, and exploring their idea in a bit more depth. Really thinking of the words that they use and making their spelling as accurate as they can. Keeping the same tense, whether it's in the past tense or the present tense. And keeping a structure. And it's a short piece of writing, so it's tricky, but it's trying to keep that audience the same throughout. Using connectives, paragraphs, and trying to use a variety of different sentence structures within that short piece of writing. And that varied use of punctuation, again, if they can use those commas well, speech marks, if it lends itself to that, they shouldn't be trying to shoehorn something in for the sake of it, but where they match, then using a variety of punctuation is a plus point. The maths paper, as I say, really fits now with the way that questions are written in our the sort of tests we do at school. And again, they've got some applied reasoning questions within there as well. Again, the paper lasts an hour and it's worth around 60 marks in total. The difference is, though, with the test papers that we have in school, is that they don't give the easy questions, the questions that make the child feel confident that they're able to do this. They go for those more difficult questions because, again, they're trying to challenge the children to really differentiate between the most able children in the area. So the best preparation, largely speaking, is the maths lessons that children are having in school. They are each day building on that maths knowledge through, and we use, as you know, Maths No Problem, but we supplement that Excuse me a moment, I can hear someone else has arrived. We supplement that by using the My Maths program as well, because we know, we have been told previously by secondary schools that the best preparation for maths is a year 7 textbook. They were the words that we used. So you will no doubt be aware that as part of the new national curriculum, I'm saying new now, but we are talking again about 4 or 5 years down the line, we're not allowed to teach the children beyond the year 5 curriculum for maths. So the only way that we can enable the children to have that input is through any booster classes. Additionally, within class, of course, the mastery opportunities are also boosting the children. And the way that the Maths No Problem, the Singapore maths approach, which is what it's based on, uses bar modelling, is one of those mastery opportunities. And it really stands our children in good stead. However, there are areas of maths which are beyond the year 5 curriculum that we cannot do in lessons, and we have to deliver in a different way. And that's why we have a booster as well. So we use My Maths to set the children tasks which take them beyond the year 5 curriculum. So they'll need to have year 6 curriculum and some of year 7 curriculum included through that My Maths provision. Now, this is set as a bulk. We've already got the accounts all set up, and we'll be sharing the login details for you with this week. And through this account, which is a different account to the homework account, which will stand alone. So your child will have a My Maths Year 5 homework account and also an 11 plus account. We will use the 11 plus account to provide the additional materials that children need in order to be able to get that year 6 and year 7 content. We set it there as a bulk, and children can work through it at a speed that you deem appropriate. Some children don't use it at all, and others will do everything that is set and everything in between. And it is entirely up to you to what extent they use that information on My Maths. We will always help children with it, and we'll be having some drop-in sessions for this. We will help children as and when they ask for it, but we're not going to be monitoring it or chasing it, following up with any children saying you haven't done any My Maths 11 plus work. That is entirely your choice as to how much your child engages with that opportunity there. But again, Westcliff High for Boys really praised the use of My Maths because they use it for homework and had said that it was a really good way of getting children into a real homework habit, if you like. And obviously, they're already using My Maths as part of their homework routine, and it's something that we build on by using it for our 11 Plus programme, part of our 11 Plus programme as well. The pass mark has remained at 303, and the standard required to achieve 303 has remained the same. And the statement around where children are expected to score is quoted there from Robin Bevan, who's the head of Southend High for Boys, just over 50%. So that's the score in the papers. Just over 50% gives a chance. 70% is a virtual guarantee. So really, just over 50% has been genuinely high enough for children in our SS postcodes to achieve a grammar school place. If we can look at this in more detail, and I've split this up because I realised it was impossible to read when we had the whole screen on at the same time, but there are specific schools listed that I'll share with you, and it tells you that the score that is, the minimum score to get in, and then the lowest score that any entrant got in the last 4 years is in the next column along. Then the yellow is the score that may have got you in eventually, even if you didn't get offered a place on that May offer day. And then the green is a score that is basically going to get you in pretty much. You're sure to get a place. And this is based on the data from the last 4 years. So we can look at each individual school in turn, which I won't do with you now. We'll just use one as an example. But if we look at Southend High for boys, we've got 2 schools there. Resident in the priority area, which is all the SS postcodes, and resident outside the priority area, because obviously all of these schools will take beyond the SS postcodes. But you can see there that you couldn't get into any of these schools below 303. But actually, for Southend High for boys, if you were living in the SS postcodes, 303 has been fine as that lowest score for a number of years. But there was 1 year when it increased to 308 because there was more interest around. It was more popular that year than Westcliff, and the score to get into Southend High for boys, it's about 4 years ago now, but it did increase to 308. It didn't mean that children with the score below that couldn't go to the other schools, and you can't predict it either. So they do tend to say that if you're applying for one of the grammar schools, you apply for the other one as a backup, because you can't, just to mitigate that risk, because you can't know which one might be more popular in a particular year. Basically, though, over the last 4 years, if your child has got above 309, you've had a place pretty much guaranteed at Southend High for boys. You can see how much higher those scores are for outside that priority area. You're looking at having, above 329 as being, a more secure towards that 330 level. If you're in an Essex area, if you like, beyond the SS postcodes. The other interesting one to look at is right at the bottom of the list, Shoebury High. They did have, as part of their admissions criteria introduced about 3 years ago, that they would like to introduce a 298 plus, a kind of backup, if you like, so that they could take children who didn't achieve 303. Unfortunately, all those places each year have been taken at the full 303. So even though they set some places aside, those places were then taken by children who wanted them and who achieved them by getting 303 and putting Shoeburyness High first. So actually the 298 criteria is no longer relevant as it was in previous years. And as I say, it's never really come to fruition. Nobody's ever been able to actually use that backup plan, if you like. But all those Southend schools are there, so you can take a look and see the particular scores for any of the ones that you're interested in for your child. There's also a statement from the CSSE about the difference for children who may be born later in the year and the disadvantage that might be. Now, in all previous years, there's been a statement put out to say that we looked at the scores this year and it really wouldn't make any difference if we made any age adjustment, and so we haven't. For the first time this year, actually, this is the standardisation report, which will tell you exactly, if you're of a mind to spend some time working that out, which I haven't been, but they tell you exactly how they apply that age standardisation. And it does actually say that second paragraph or third paragraph down, if you like, this year, the test was statistically significant for both English and maths, and the corresponding age adjustment factors were calculated. So that's saying that for the first time, they have actually used age standardisation because it was clearly making a difference to the children's scores. So again, in future years, they will keep looking and seeing if it will make a statistical difference, and if it will, they apply these adjustments. So the consortium have stated that they don't feel that the best way of preparing your child is for them to have a lot of tutoring, particularly, or excessive coaching. Yes, there will be some areas where a child needs to be given those additional materials for maths specifically. But actually, if a child is overcoached, they worry that when that's taken away, if they get a place, it might make them struggle to cope. So their advice is that children should spend a few hours familiarising themselves with the style of papers. So just using the sample materials on the website is enough for children in their preparation. They say that most of this, what they're looking for there's quite a list there of the things that they'd like to see in the children who are applying. And they're not expecting every child to display every single aspect of this, but it just gives you a flavour of the sort of thing. And it is very much wanting children who are keen to work, who are able to be able to work, for a sustained period of time and maintain their motivation, if you like. Therefore, the preparation needs to take that into account. It needs to be making sure that children are feeling comfortable with that work and with the style of thinking that they need to apply in the question. So getting used to what the papers look like. And then becoming systematic. So if there's a problem to solve, finding ways of solving the problem systematically, and being able to, work out whether you need something. You need to try a higher number because that one, the answer was too low. So working out how to think in maths problems, but also to repeat further, faster, harder questions that develop that fluency, being able to do it more quickly, knowing the times tables facts and the division related links, knowing number bonds, applying those number bonds to 30 add 70, 300 add 700, and being able to have those answers pretty much more at their fingertips than having to, work it out, because speed will be of the essence in the test itself. So how do we support moving forward? We have got a very different year, as you're aware, at the moment. So what we've had to say is that this is our plan as we intend to deliver it as things stand. We will do everything we can as it goes through the year to do the additional items there. So for the moment, obviously, we're having the online workshop at the moment and another one this afternoon. In January, we will be starting 11+ sessions. Now, that's largely going to be delivered through videos and materials on the website. If you've looked already at our website, you'll see there's already an 11+ tab. And all the work that was provided for this year's year 6, obviously they had longer this year to prepare for the test because it didn't take place till the beginning of November. So there are about 7 weeks there of sessions for reading and maths and a few for writing that you can use. I would just put in a bit of a warning there that if you're using them now, that just be aware that some of that content is going to be quite a jump for your children from this point in year 5, especially any that have not had that regular input through the end of year 5 when we were out of school. It could be that some of those tasks are quite challenging. Don't be put off by that. They were written for children at the start of their year 6 journey. So that information on there, those tasks will increase. We'll start putting new sessions on there from January. As I say, there'll be a couple for maths, a writing and a reading each week. And we'll add to that with lunchtime booster drop-in sessions. Now, this is within their class. So their class teacher will tell them which lunchtime it is that they will be available to just receive the children on a drop-in situation. They have to only go to their class teacher. That's because of the bubbles that we're still very much having to operate in. But we hope that our way of delivering this is something that you're able to engage with at home through those videos online, and then your child being able to have that support if they need it on a one-to-one during those lunchtime booster sessions. We then hope everything in June is a little bit easier for us to be able to deliver a practice test. Obviously, sitting in a room with 150 children is not something we could do at the moment. It's not something our year 6s were able to do just because of those health and safety restrictions. But we do hope by June we'll be able to do that. And that will give you a score and a chance to decide if you think that is what is right for your child. As I say, if they've seen any of the information earlier, the paper, if they've done that paper before, they're going to get a really high mark. Just be aware of that as well. We'd also hope to be able to offer a one-day summer school, and that's always on the last school day before any inset days. So in a way, that's not such good news, because it always means, you know, if you're taking a very last-minute holiday, it does mean, you know, and if you're taking advantage of those inset days for a last-minute holiday, it's always just before that. But of course, our teachers are all involved in the inset training, and we're not able to deliver it you know, during that period. So our prospective date would be the Tuesday, the 31st of October, sorry, got that on the brain, 31st of August for our summer school. And that would be utilising the staff in the school that are able to deliver that material. So either year 6, year 5, or other teachers who've had that input. We would then look to be able to do a full rehearsal morning in school. Assuming everything is back to normal, and it is, all of the children who want to do it, to be honest, it's usually about 60 children. It's not all 150, but, you know, even that at the moment wouldn't be possible. But if we are able to deliver that, it's still not the best rehearsal for your child, because they're in a familiar room with familiar children, with the staff that they know. And of course, in the reality, the test isn't like that. They're at a strange school with a group of children around them they don't necessarily know, and teachers, you know, monitoring who they don't know either. So we do the best we can in recreating that rehearsal morning, and that's just before the test. We then mark, the first test we mark, the practice test in June. The one that is in the beginning of September, we don't mark that. We send that home to you, because you need that material as quickly as possible with the mark scheme to have a look at that and see if there's anything your child needs further help with. And we offer drop-in sessions then for parents and children where we offer that additional support. Is there anything on that test that you'd like us to support your child with? The test date is usually about the 3rd Saturday in September. We haven't got that date as yet. And then, as I say, we'll have another session like this, and we offer support with making those choices, putting those preferences in order, and completing the form nearer the time. So, not to labour this point, but of course, your child may well be academically able to cope in a grammar school environment. Not every child is able to cope emotionally, and that's something only as a parent you will know. But the Southend Grammar Schools do quite openly state that they're looking to take from the top 25% based on academic ability. So it's really down to those features that I mentioned earlier. Does your child relish hard work, and do they apply themselves willingly? I kind of say that in a bit of a tongue-in-cheek way, because no child, there's very few children that will absolutely throw themselves at work and do not want to do anything else. It doesn't mean you should count them out of consideration. But if it really is something that is almost impossible to achieve, you know, them sitting down and continuing with something once they've got started, it might be that it's something they're going to find difficult as they go through secondary school as well. Again, the second bullet point, visit to find out the culture of each particular school. We've got a lot of months between now and then, and there will be open events either, you know, once we get to June, July, they may be back to being full open events. If not, they will all have something online, an online tour that you'll be able to see, just to have a feel of what the school is like. Do talk to other parents and pupils at other schools to find out about those schools. It's really important that we don't just go by the things we hear in the media, as you know, because we do tend to always hear the worst rather than the best. And also listen to what your child's saying, but don't let them be influenced by just where their friends are applying to, because we all know that it is a little bit of a game of chance to some extent. And if they are influenced to go somewhere purely because of their friend, and then their friend doesn't actually get there, or, you know, chooses to go somewhere else at the last minute, that can really throw your child. So don't let them be influenced too much by their friends' choices, but talk about what it is that's best for them. They will soon make new friends whichever school they go to. And all of the schools in Southend are really working extremely hard to get the best outcomes for all of our children. And that last point there about self-esteem. Each child, as I say, is very different. And if it's going to be difficult for your child potentially to be part of a grammar school where, you know, if they've been somebody who's been a real high flyer, if you like, it can be quite different to be part of a grammar school and not to feel that same feeling when there's children who have been bussed in from miles around who, you know, may find the work even easier. And it's purely down to how your child will cope with that new and very different environment. So again, I don't want to labour on this. We don't want to make it too stressful for children. It is hard. I fully understand that as a parent in the same situation myself. But do try and talk about their daily work, about what they're doing in school. Talk about that with them. And as I've tried to do myself, talk about meeting the threshold on the day, because some children are more than capable of actually meeting the threshold and things just don't work out that day. There's parts of the paper they're not familiar with, or it throws them, or pressure can make a huge difference. So the best thing you can do for your child is totally take the pressure off them. So don't use the language of passing or failing, but of doing their best, so that they know that you're proud of them for giving it a go, whatever the outcome. And do take advantage of all the opportunities to, as I say, see online, if not in person, grammar and non-selective schools. Because if your child can walk into that test room knowing that actually, even if it doesn't go their way that day, they've got a school that both you and they are really happy with, that is your next option, then the pressure's off. They know that it isn't all the eggs in that test basket, that it doesn't matter if it doesn't quite work out that day. There's another backup that you're all happy with, and it can really help then for them to go into the room and fly, because there's no pressure. Do feel free, of course, to look further afield. There are schools that are just outside Southend in Essex, which are not therefore in the Southend booklet. When I talk about the Southend booklet now, I'm talking about all the Southend schools. So I'm not talking about the CSSE booklet. You can look at the Southend-on-Sea secondary admissions booklet. Again, that is not ready yet for this year. And when it is ready, we will let you know. You won't get a paper copy of that one. Southend stopped doing that a couple of years ago. But the Southend-on-Sea booklet is gives you information about all Southend schools, whether they're selective or not. And there is another booklet just like it for Essex, and you can look up that booklet and find out the information about the schools that are outside our borough. So start to do that now. We've named a couple because they are particular schools that have a way of testing your child to take preferential for entry requirements. So Fitzwymark and King John are both Essex schools that actually your child will sit either a test for King John, that does include the verbal reasoning aspect, or Fitzwymark, that's a sports entry, so they do a bleep test and general things like that to see how they perform in sport. Eastwood Academy does sport and performing arts, but of course that is a Southend school, so you'd find information about that in the Southend booklet. They all are places where you have to make that application before you come back in September. So although we have another session about applications when you come back and your child is starting in year 6, for some of these the deadline will have been passed. So it really makes sense to make yourself an expert about how to apply for the schools that your child is interested in, either in Southend or outside Southend. Just that last bullet point, as I've mentioned, that it really takes the pressure off for your child if they know going into that test room that you're all happy with another option that doesn't rely on meeting the threshold that day. So as I mentioned earlier, regarding tutoring, the CSSE warns against extensive tutoring that goes beyond sharing that material from year 6 and year 7. And it does say that, you know, any tutoring should complement what happens in school. We're very lucky that our approach in Maths No Problem is clearly it allows children to use a lot of different methods. So even if you're showing them a different method at home, our children should recognise that there are lots of different ways to do something. In fact, knowing why a method works is one of the reasons, it's one of the focuses of Maths No Problem. The fact that a child understands why a method works, therefore another method works, even though it's different, it works because of this. And that means that it shouldn't be too confusing if there's different methods being used. Having said that, if they are working with a tutor and your child is saying, I'm getting confused, that's when you need to put those warning bells on and perhaps think, is this the right thing for my child? We've got a quote there, based on experience as head of lower school, coming into grammar school having just passed does not mean they will struggle, but having been heavily tutored to get a pass does mean that they may struggle. So you don't need to worry if your child gets 303, 304, 305 and has only just made it. The real concern is if they've had an awful lot of support to get there, they might not be able to continue it if that support is then taken away once they get that place. Another point just regarding tutors, do be careful just to check that people are, police checked. You know who it is your child is working with. Clearly, at the moment, a lot of it will be online anyway, I imagine. Again, think about those reasons. They do say that if it's one particular subject, so if your child is absolutely fine with the maths, but actually the reading is something that they might need a little bit of help with, or the writing, then using a tutor to redress that balance is I won't say recommended, but more in line with their recommendations. Does the person working with your child have recent relevant experience, and does it work alongside our curriculum? How did your child feel about it? If your child is literally kicking and screaming before they're taking part in it, and they're being given a lot of work that it's really, really hard for you to get them to do in between, then, maybe again, it might be that you need to either think about a different tutor or think about your reasons for having one. Are they using the same materials that we use in school? And unfortunately, if everybody's using that CSSE website at home for the tutors, we use them as well as a school. It is going to have some overlap, and your child will find that, yeah, I've seen this paper before, and it will happen. But if somebody's just using practice paper after practice paper and not using other materials, that again is something perhaps to change. So we've put some links here. Obviously, you've got your own copy of these slides, as I say, that have been parent mailed to you. So you'll be able to click on these. The CSSE website that I mentioned earlier is linked there. That's where you can find the sample materials, and eventually the book for the 2022 entry will be put there as well. There's the letter there regarding the test arrangements. That is the latest letter, but clearly things have been very different this year. Southend Borough themselves have started the Southend 11 Plus website. That's got information there and plenty of practice questions as well. I honestly don't think practice questions will be of any concern to you. There's not going to be any lack of practice opportunities for you and your child if that's the way that you want to go. There's all that work that we mentioned about on My Maths. If you find that with those logins will be coming out this week, but if ever you find you can't find the right login for the 11 Plus work, just email in to ict@lixtrust.uk and remember to say it's the 11 Plus login you need, otherwise you'll be given the Year 5 homework login. Barvember is something that White Rose Maths do. It's problem-solving activities that use the bar model that I mentioned earlier, ways of drawing out a problem-solving question that help your child to be able to see it logically. I honestly, when I first came across it, wondered how on earth I'd managed to do anything in maths, having not known anything about bar model until about 5 years ago. It really is amazing to be able to share that with children now, just to be able to visually see in front of you a representation of a question is something that children do in school, as I say, and you can build on. And if you use those Barvember problems, you've got a range of problems there They have some really easy ones that you can start off with, and they get more and more tricky. So doing sort of questions 1 and 2 for younger children, and your child will be working around the question 3 and 4 range, and the question 5s are really quite hard going for some adults. I have to put my hand up with that, but you know, they are amazing preparation, and they've done this for about 3 or 4 years, so there's a kind of a backlog of problems for you to work through on that White Rose Maths site as well. It's called Barvember because it's presented in November every year, so there's about 28 questions. They do it for every working day in the month of November for that year. The last 2 links there are the continuous writing mark scheme for you to have a look at for English. And then there's a link to the Pobble story starters. And if you haven't ever seen Pobble, it just gives you a new picture and a new starting point for a story or a piece of writing every single day. And again, you can see back information there, so you can choose a picture that you think will inspire your child, and you're not looking for a massively long piece of writing, and it is quality rather than quantity. And if you look at that continuous writing mark scheme, it will help you. And you know, the excerpt that I shared earlier about the sort of things for your child to include. So lots of positive praise to boost your child's self-esteem is probably the most important thing you can do at this point. Make them feel good about their learning and really get involved, find out what it is they're doing. We do very much promote growth mindset at Greenways. We do, in our classrooms, make sure we've got the right environment where it's all right to make a mistake. And it is frustrating if a child, you know, gets the first answer, a really silly answer in, you know, a maths question where I know you know that, why did you say that, you know, and it is frustrating, certainly, but it is one of those things where actually we need to say that's fine, we all do it. The important thing is that you go back and you check, or immediately you've got an answer, you use an alternative way and check your answer is right. And it's part of the learning process. So it's fine to make a mistake. It's the fact that you can then find it and change it that is the important bit. And that very last point there, some children succeed at every single school in Southend. You can succeed at any one of those schools. And this is not a day, the 11 plus test is not a day that is going to determine your child's future. It really isn't, because they can do well wherever they go. And if we're all aware of that and we make sure that our children know that from us, then it takes the pressure off them entirely. So it is about making the right choice for your own child, only you know, and about making that journey to secondary school as smooth as possible. We've included the link there. If you've got any questions, you can go through, contact us at Greenways and ask us, and we will get back to you with a response. And if we don't know the answer, we will find out and then get back to you later. But we will always do our best to support you in any questions you have about the process, or indeed, as I've said, when it comes to submitting the 5 choices. And we'll have a meeting about that in late September, early October. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen and hope there's still people there. It is really strange when you share your screen, because that's all you can see is the screen and you don't know if there's anyone still there. Oh, there's still people on the screen. That's really nice to see. So I'm just going to stop presenting and then I can hopefully see people. And you might be able to raise your hand, or you might just open your microphone if you want, if you have any questions that you'd like to answer that are asked of a general nature that other people might benefit from hearing the answer to. I'm just pausing. You can also type through the chat if you prefer. I'm just checking there's nobody on the chat. No questions on the chat. Okay, well, I'll just give a massive apology for the fact that I've gone through that so quickly. There's an awful lot of information, and a lot of it I know you will already have known. I hope there's something at least you can take away from this session. If nothing else, the links that you might be able to look at later on. But please, as I say, do get in contact with us if you've got any questions. We are here to help. And thank you so much for giving up your morning to join us. And, you know, what can I say? Have a wonderful Christmas period with your children, not having to do too much 11 plus preparation work. Hopefully they need to get a balance as well and have a bit of a rest. Thank you so much again. I'm going to say goodbye and see you, I'm sure, at the gate sometime this week. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.